So I'm Pete, in case you're not sure, this guy. So you may be wondering who this is. This is a Liverpool player, and he plays for England, and he's the right back, and his name is Trent Alexander-Arnold. And he was in the news this week because he claimed a spot in the Guinness World Records 2020. And he did this for racking up the most assists for goals in a season, in the Premier season. And he got 12 assists, and that's the most for a defender, actually, I should say, okay, in a single season. Now, do any of you know who the person who held the record before him was? There's maybe only one who's okay, it's this person here. Anyone know his name? Hinchcliffe. Well done, John. I thought John might get it, okay, because John's a bit of a geek. So, Andy Hinchcliffe. And he got the record in 94-95 season. And he retired from football in 2002 when Trent Alexander-Arnold, the new player, was only 4 years old. And so poor Andy Hinchcliffe, his record has gone and he's been forgotten. And it wasn't even 20 years ago. And this is life, isn't it? Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 11, it says, "No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them." Ecclesiastes, such a happy book. Now, you may not be familiar with Ecclesiastes, and you're thinking, it's all right, this depressing verse that was there, it's probably surrounded by all kinds of encouraging stuff, all encouraging verses. Nope, not at all. You know, if your heart is looking for encouragement and you open your Bible up randomly and it comes to Ecclesiastes, the thing you should do quickly is close it and try again, because it's not really encouraging. You know, as kids, when we were growing up, we used to play this game at the dining room table whenever we had guests over, and it was a kind of game, get to know the guests better. And we would ask them questions about, if you were on a desert island, what one thing would you take with you? And I was thinking about, imagine if Solomon and his family were playing this game. And the question comes up, what one person would you take with you? I bet you nobody ever said, I'm going to take Solomon, the writer to Ecclesiastes, because he's utterly miserable. I mean, he's that miserable, even I look happy in comparison. Yes, wow, that is how miserable he is. And what's amazing is, this author, he has absolutely everything. We need to kind of understand this, that this author, Solomon, is the king of a very prosperous, wealthy, powerful nation. He has more wealth, more power, and fame that you and I will ever have. And you know, he's more educated than we could ever be. From the second he was born, he's had privilege, he's had tutors, and that is how his life has been. He's not just some guy off the street down on his luck. But this is King Solomon, who is beyond us in terms of education, wealth, power. He's just so beyond us. And his conclusion to life is meaningless. I mean, I definitely would not invite him to the desert island. And yet, a very small part of me does want to help him and reach out and maybe give him a hug and say, you know what, Solomon, it's going to be okay. Solomon, I've got the best thing for you. Dal. You know, I love dal. And dal will make things better. But for Solomon, I'm sure even dal would not make things better. Because look again at what he says. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything, even dal, is meaningless. And this is how he begins his conversation. And it's obvious here that King Solomon is just trying to knock me off balance. He's trying to unsettle me, to jar me, to grab me, to shake me, to wake me up. And the only way that he can do this is to get me to recognize the lies I tell myself. And there's a couple of lies I know we do. We all tell ourselves. One is, God, I'm going to live forever. I'm going to live forever. The second lie I tell myself, if I don't live forever, imagine that, if I don't, then I'm going to do something so amazing, so outstanding that people are never going to forget me. But Solomon steps in and says, Pete, you're going to die. And Pete, nobody's going to remember you. How you all doing? Nice and happy, eh? But it's true. I am going to die, and hopefully, not today, and not too soon. But the other truth there is, people will forget me. Now you're sitting there going, no, I can see Faith going, no, Pete, your sermons, they will live forever in my heart. Now that's the problem really, isn't it? My sermon might live forever in your heart, but you're going to die too. And with the passing of you will go the passing of me. It is highly unlikely that in 100 years from now, anyone will remember who I was. And the teacher is saying, Solomon is saying, let's just begin there. Let me shake you, wake you up, unsettle you. Because perhaps we might realize when I die, we need to realize it is likely that we will be forgotten. And once we realize these two truths, maybe now I can get on to the business of living, because I'm not living in a dreamland. I'm not living believing lies. I'm seeing the truth for what it is. And maybe now I can receive each day as a blessing, as a gift from God. But we've got to go through this unsettled space before we get there. And so chapter 1 of this amazing book of Ecclesiastes, which goes on for over 12 chapters, really cheery stuff. But verses 2 through 11 of chapter 1, I think it can be broken down to 3 unsettling truths that I want to share with you this morning. The first unsettling truth is to do with meaning. It's that verse we've just looked at. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. It's all utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Now, I don't think the writer here is saying that nothing you do has any value or worth. He's not saying that parenting your preschooler is meaningless, that helping people do their taxes is meaningless, that doing your work at school is meaningless, that serving as a doctor or a nurse or a school teacher. He's not saying that all these things are meaningless. But he's getting after something that's to do with vapor, with mist. And the Hebrew word that he uses is a word that is used like 35 times in Ecclesiastes. And once you get past chapter 1, this word just keeps coming up. It's the Hebrew word is hebel, and it means mist. I'm enjoying myself. I'm seeing looking vapor. Breath. Think about it. If I'm on a run, it's early morning, it's January, it's cold out, and as I breathe, I can see my breath. It's there, and then it's gone. 5 minutes later, somebody else is running down the same path. They will never know I've been there because that breath I just had, it's gone. It's dissipated. It's hebel. It's a mist. It's vanished. The same thing happens when you make a cup of tea. You stick the kettle on, and after a while, you see the steam pouring out. But within a few seconds, it's gone. It's a vapor. Or I'm on my commute to Richmond Park, and I see the mist there hovering there in the grass, and it looks so beautiful. But as I'm slightly late again for work, I tell myself, I'll take a photo of it on the way home. But when I return, it's gone. Now, maybe some of you know this music. Any of you know the song? Yeah? It's from the film Chariots of Fire. Now, some of you may not have any idea what film this is. Well, shame on you. Anyway, the movie follows two runners. One runner is named Eric Liddell, and the other runner is Harold Abrahams. And both of them are running for Great Britain in the 1924 Olympics. And there's this moment right before Harold Abrahams is about to run, and he tells his friend that in this race his whole life is on the line. Listen to the quote from the movie.
Now, in 1 hour's time, I'll be out there again. I'll raise my eyes and look down that corridor, 4 feet wide with 10 lonely seconds to justify my whole existence. But will I?
And what he says there, he says, I now have 10 lonely seconds to justify my existence. He's talking about the 100 meters. And I want to shout at Harold Abrahams and say, dude, this isn't going to do it for you. That gold medal, it's not going to do it for you. It's not going to satisfy you. It's not going to give your life meaning. I want to say, because it's a mist. It's vapor. It's not something that you can get your hands around. And we do this so often, we pin our hopes on the wrong thing. Whether it's an achievement, whether it's a degree, whether it's a person, whether it's an upcoming holiday, we say to ourselves, listen, when I get that, I will be whole. That will do it for me. And we replace the eternal with the temporal. And the writer of Ecclesiastes was saying 3,000 years ago, he would be saying, man, think again. Because it's all meaningless. Meaningless. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. And if you're chasing after it, you'll find that it's just like a vapor. It's a breath. It's a mist. It's impossible to grab and get your hands around. It's definitely not something that will keep you satisfied. Unsettling truth number 2 has to do with monotony. Have you ever noticed that some days do actually feel an awful lot like you're caught up in Bill Murray's Groundhog Day? When you wake up and every day is the same. Parents of the preschoolers, where it's just around and around and around and around and around in this cycle of get them down to bed, get them up, get them fed, get them changed, do their laundry, and then it starts all over again. Just the same again and again. I mean, just think about our day tomorrow. The alarm will go off at 6. We will snooze the alarm, as we do every day. We'll eventually get up, shower, get dressed, get in the car, stop at Starbucks. We'll then sit in more traffic. We'll get to a place of work until lunch. At lunch, we'll eat something, maybe with some friends and colleagues. Now, after lunch, we'll go back to work and work until 5 or 6. Then we'll leave work and we'll go to the gym. Probably we won't, actually. We'll want to, we know we should, but again, we won't. We'll go home, we'll have dinner, we'll eat dinner, we'll watch a little TV, and we'll go to bed. And then on Tuesday, the alarm will go again. Same thing. Same drink at Starbucks, because nobody ever orders anything different. Maybe we'll have the same lunch. If it's a different lunch, it's one of 3 that you choose from the menu. We'll go back to the same office, same traffic, same TV show, same bed. And life is more like Groundhog Day than we realize. And it is the unsettling truth of monotony that this is life. And this is life when life is being lived well. Because when life is being lived badly, it's chaos, and every day we don't know what's happening. When life is being lived well, it's monotony. Just a ton of sameness. Verse 5 of this chapter says, the sun rises and the sun sets, and it hurries back to where it rises. And that's what it's like. Day follows day. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. Nighttime. The sun goes up, sun goes down. Nighttime. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. Nighttime. And now I see the youth are here, and you're thinking, God, you old people are so boring. But the same happens for you guys. You wake up when your mother wakes you up. You eat cereal if you're not late. You go to school. Then you come home. You do some homework if you're good. You probably don't. You probably play on a PlayStation, or you text friends, or watch endless funny cat videos on YouTube. And then you go to bed. And then the next day, you do it again. And you know what? You're all waiting for that day when you leave school. And you are free to start work. Where you wake up. You make your own breakfast. You take a shower realizing you have to clean the shower. You go to work. You work at work. You come home, you eat dinner, you watch some TV, you go to bed, and you wake up and do it again. The sun rises, the sun sets, the sun rises, the sun sets. And what the author is saying is, there's movement in our lives, but actually there's movement but no arrival. So he moves on. He gives us another example just to bring home his point in case you haven't got it. He says in verse 5, all streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is what? Let's say the last two words together. The sea is never full. Think about the Thames. I read that the Thames is fed by at least 50 other named, little streams and rivers. And the water from these small streams and rivers, they all flow into the Thames. And it does this year after year, after decade, after century. All that water moving toward the sea. But somehow, by magic, the sea never gets full. And what we're watching is perpetual movement. But movement without arrival. Movement without completion. Now, the voice in your head is going, Pete, this is monotony. I'm telling you. Exactly. The author is telling us about the sea never being full because he's trying to get us to understand it is us who are never full. It is me, it is you who are never full. Look at verse 8. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear is full of hearing. You know, just one box set follows the next box set, which is followed by the next box set, which is followed by the next. Just as the Thames flows through London to the sea, so box set follows box set. So restaurant experience follows restaurant experience. So trips follow trips. So holidays flow through my life. And yet I'm never full. It's movement. But movement without arrival. Monotony. Unsettling truth number 3. So in life, what do we want? You know, we want things to feel new. We want new experiences. We want new storylines. We hate things always being the same because that's so boring. And the author says, are you ready for his cheery disposition? Are you ready? He says, what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is, read it with me, should be on the screen. There is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new. Just in case you didn't get that, check out the next verse. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. But there's nothing new. Now, obviously, you're sitting there thinking, God, the guy that wrote that, King Solomon, he wrote that is because obviously he did not possess the iPhone 11 Pro or the Google Pixel 4 XL. I mean, we would say, yeah, we've got new technology all the time. We've got air travel. They never had that. We've got self-driving cars. We've got computing technology. We can text. Something our parents were unable to do. And now you're sitting there going, something my parent is still unable to do. Oh, sorry. Hey. A phone. Do you like it? It's really cool, isn't it? You've seen one of these before? Hello. Do you know what? This used to be the best type of phone you could buy. It was an amazing phone. There was nothing like, hey, how you doing? How many of you owned one of these? Yeah. How many of you still use one of these? No one. It was new. It really was new and amazing. But now it's old. It's gone. It was new, it's old, it's gone. It's new, it's old, it's gone. It's new, it's old, it's gone. Let me show you a statement that was made about Wembley, the old Wembley Stadium. It was said, it is the cathedral of football. It is the capital of football. It is the heart of football. Do any of you know who said that? Well, it was, or do any of you know who made Wembley Stadium? The architects there, John Simpson and Maxwell Arton. Now I'm sure you're all sitting there going, who? Well, that's the point, isn't it? But this is what Wembley looked like in 2003. It's gone. At once, the cathedral of football, gone. It's new. It's old, it's gone. It's new, it's old, it's gone. So how are you all doing? Have I touched your inner Eeyore yet? You know, you're here and you probably thought, church, well, it's meant to be a happy place. I was coming and I was going to find hope this morning. Unlucky. Maybe you said, I came and I was feeling great. I woke up and we had a great family breakfast. We were speaking about how things were just coming together. And I came to church and it was like, welcome to church. And then you got up and it's like everything sucks and everything is meaningless. Well, maybe God has your attention this morning. Maybe God has unsettled you. Maybe you need to stop and evaluate your life. Do you have meaning in your life? And being unsettled is the goal, is the plan of the author of Ecclesiastes. And surely for us, being unsettled is so much better than being like an ostrich with its head in the sand. And you know what makes me kind of upset is people think that this is us as Christians. That we kind of put our head in the sand and we ignore the world around us. But I think the opposite is true. I am not deluded. I am going to die. Nobody will remember me. Nearly everything, or pretty much everything I do is pointless and meaningless. Maybe we are the ones who are awake. Because if you're without Christ, then what purpose is there for living? There is none. If there is no God, and we are just accidents, when we eventually die, we become nothing. In other words, our origin is meaningless, and our destiny is meaningless. Therefore, if we have the guts to admit it, our whole life is meaningless. It's pointless. And you see what the author is doing here? He's pushing us. He's saying we need to go one way or the other. There is either a God who created you, a God who sustained you, a God who will one day judge you, and there is an afterlife in eternity, or there is nothing else. There is no middle ground. And for some of us, we need to be woken up. We need to stop that treadmill of monotony. And a part of me just wants to sit down now and go, leave you to it. But I do believe there is hope. The prophet Isaiah says in chapter 49, he says this, "Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has borne? Though she may forget, I will not forget you." Now, God is choosing this image of a mother to tell us something about himself. You know, he could have chosen the image of a husband and wife, but that relationship is kind of conditional. I love my wife, she loves me back. If I'm cross with my wife, she still loves me back, I hope. But I can't always guarantee it. But there are important things in this relationship about a mother's relationship with her child. Firstly, it's a regular kind of relationship. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, think about a nursing mother. Unless she nurses her child regularly, unless she breastfeeds her child regularly, the mother is in pain. Every so many hours, if you don't meet the needs of the little baby, there is pain for the mother. There's a constant, regular care that is needed. It is also unconditional. You know, if you happen to fall in love with someone, there is some give or take. Some days I make the dinner. Some days Claire makes the dinner. Some days I drive. Some days Claire drives. Some days Claire wins the arguments. Some days she lets me think I win the argument. There is give and take. But for a new mother, her life stops when she has that baby. It now completely revolves around this little thing. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it doesn't even stop when they get to 18. It just keeps on going. And they don't even thank us. And you know, when that baby burps, it's not a thank you, it's a burp. And you can imagine it's a thank you all you want, but it's not. And the baby does nothing. But there are no conditions from the mother. And God says, this is how I relate to you. This, God says, is the one image I can give you about how strongly, how powerfully, how tenderly, how absolutely I love you. And yes, it does say, she may forget. And we know in life, this does happen. Mothers reject their children. But God is saying, my love for you is then not exactly like a mother's. It's infinitely greater. Do you get that? Do you get what I mean? He's not just saying, see a mother's love. Well, he's saying, no, mine is more powerful. See a mother's love? Well, mine is more free and unconditional. See a mother's love? Well, mine is more detailed and elaborate. You know, God says in Psalm 56 that he keeps a track of our tears that are rolling down our cheeks. Even a mother cannot count that. And God is saying, this is who I am. Everything about my nature leads me to love you unconditionally. Absolutely, powerfully, regularly. But then there is more. Verse 16, it says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." And now this word engraved is absolutely awesome. He's not just saying I've written it. I'm not just saying I've tattooed it. He's saying it's engraved. Think about sitting at your school desk and somebody's written on the desk. The cleaner comes along and wipes it off. Even if it's with Sharpie, they can wipe it off. It's engraved. It's cut into. It cannot be removed. It's permanent. It doesn't wash off. It doesn't fade. It's amazing. And engraved doesn't just mean chipped into. It talks about artistry. It's not scratched in. Engraving is a work of art. And God is saying, I want this relationship with you, not just based on who He is, not just based upon heaven. Because when I look at you, I see something beautiful. You know, when a mother looks at the child, they're amazed how beautiful they are. And God says to you this morning, when I look at you, I'm ravished by your beauty. I just cannot get over you. I can hardly express the delight of how I feel about you. And so, because of that, it doesn't matter what your friends say about you. It doesn't matter what your parents say about you. It doesn't matter what the mirror says about you. It doesn't matter what the scales say about me. It doesn't matter. Because I am engraved in the hands of God. And just think about palms for a moment. Kind of the most visible place. If I was to engrave something anywhere else on my body, it would be kind of hidden. I might not be able to see it. But on the palms of my hand, I would be constantly reminded. You know, when I hold this really cool phone, I hold it in the palm of my hand. I see it. It's there. It's a reminder. And I know at the beginning of the sermon I said we are forgotten. That when we die, we will be forgotten. But not to our God. Our names are engraved on His palms. And would you not say that our palms are also incredibly vulnerable? I mean, think about a chisel. I mean, a chisel, that must hurt incredibly. And this morning, think about the hands of Jesus. Think about His hands. See where the nail marks are. That is where your name is. The nail that pierced His hands are the tools with which our names are engraved on His hands. And one last thing, and then I will close. You know, sometimes, or actually a lot, babies cry a lot. They moan, they wriggle. But just occasionally they are quiet. And you know why? It's because they're being fed. This morning, have I unsettled you? If your soul feels unsettled and disquieted and restless, maybe it's because you've been searching for the eternal in the temporal. But it's only when you come to rest and feed on Jesus that you will find meaning in life. Amen. Let's just pray and then Jason will come up. Father, I just pray that we would, in these next moments, know more about your wondrous love for us. A love that helps us understand life. Take these words and sift them, but also sift us. Help us to see your truth. In Jesus' name, amen.